We have yet another episode being done today for the past podcast. If you're tuning in, I do appreciate it. If you'd like to check out any previous episodes, go to Spreaker.com/Brite Podcast. Nonetheless, let's continue the show. So, another week, another podcast. This is the Past Podcast, doing yet another weekly sports episode. We, always balance it out with a little bit of music, a little bit of techie, maybe some gaming talk, and of course our infamous sports info. Co-host back with me again. Back at it again. We are just knocking out these shows. Thanks everyone that has been tuning in, is keeping up this far. The weekly episodes have been rolling. We kind of caught you off guard a little bit with the Sunday episode, but it still worked out. Turned out being a pretty good episode. And then mixing everything with I've been doing my weekly episode. My daily episodes for podcasting every day in April. Hope you all have been enjoying that. Did some good little spinoffs. May throw some sports stories in for these next few days since I'm almost in the home stretch. Episodes are being loaded on Spreaker.com, so if you want to check that source out, it's a good place to start off podcasting. I would definitely recommend it. And the microphone we are using this week, of course, as every week and every day for these podcasts, is the Blue Yeti microphone. So our first story is a bit of a tribute for our artist spotlight. It's a bit of a tribute as well as a balance of just a musical passion. I just got schooled on realizing that Prince had been out that long. Prince, and it's a coincidence, his actual real name was Prince Rogers Nelson. So this is kind of like a unique story for me, only because, like I said, yesterday was his 1 year anniversary of his death, and we'll kind of give a little bit of added information with that later. But he was born in Minneapolis, Minnesota back in June of 1958. Let's see, I'm going to kind of throw some random info. His father was a performer who went by Prince Rogers as his stage name, and his mom was a jazz singer also within his band. His parents broke up when he was 10. Prince then ran away and lived with a family, like a local family that was known as the Anderson family. He performed in his first band in high school. It was known as Grand Central, who eventually became Champagne. The band members consisted of Andre Anderson and a well-known artist that a lot of people know about today known as Morris Day. In 1978, he signed to Warner Brothers, which is a key part of the story, and I'll explain why later. His flashiness in high school, he was known for being flashy, as he was older, but when he was younger, flashiness was a thing for him to kind of cover up and mask from his personal epileptic seizures he would have, and a lot of people teased him because of that. Throw some info. I'm not gonna take. You're gonna take some info.
No, you can. I was going through his early life. I was gonna say, some of his, achievements and things that he had reached later on in his career. So I was,
Okay. All right. Are you gonna collab? All right. Okay. Well, let me. All right. My bad. I'm passing it off early. My fault. So, like I said, in 1978, he did sign with Warner Brothers. His first album was called For You, and that was pretty much done at 20. So he played nearly all of the instruments within that group, which, I say this from a musical standpoint, it's not easy to play multiple instruments in a song. If you go back and listen, he was a guitarist, drummer, pianist, things of that sort. His first top 20 hit was I Want to Be Your Lover. In 1981, he released the album Controversy, and that was the name of the album. It wasn't a controversial album. It included a dance-oriented theme with singles such as Sexuality and Do Me Baby. His album, titled 1999, it didn't come out in 99, obviously. It came out when I was born in 82. It was more known as a global album. It included included the hit tracks Little Red Corvette and Delirious. 84, it introduced One of his more known albums that I would consider Purple Rain. Anytime when you talk about Prince, you always think of Purple Rain. It was a coincidence, and this is a fun fact to kind of blend into the sports story. The Minnesota Vikings, oddly enough, their colors, known as the Purple People Eaters. That was kind of like his time, especially with being into. Prince was a big sports fan, and it's not mentioned in the info we have, but I know it was addressed that he was into a lot of sports. He actually played basketball coming up in, I think it was middle school. High school. He was like a backup point guard. He worked on, let me make sure I don't skip anything. It served, like I said, Prince, the soundtrack, the album Purple Rain coincidentally served as a soundtrack for one of the movies. Had hit singles When Doves Cry and Let's Go Crazy. One song that anytime you talk to somebody about Prince, they'll always talk about the song Beautiful Ones. He worked on a double album known as Sign of the Times in '87, which had the song You Got the Look, which introduced an artist named Sheena Easton. It got a better album. It got a better attention to when it was it was a more international based album as well over in Europe. He then released the album Love Sexy in '88. It was that album caused a lot of controversy because he was actually nude on the cover. Oddly enough, and it was the 2%, because I'm like, I wasn't looking at it for the purpose of like, oh, let's see. It was like, okay, I really must have missed that point of music.
That's one way to get attention.
Right. It was, and it was kind of a concept in the 80s because it kind of evolved over the 90s and, now where sex sells. He definitely made that clear. It had the hit single Alphabet Street. He then released his 11th album, which was done as a soundtrack for Batman back in '89. And then in the early 90s, the launch of the new power generation began. And I kind of, delved and digged a little bit further beyond that, where that was kind of my stopping point of like breaking down his music. Because from that point, it was more just, he was starting to go into a change with his and this kind of ties into the podcast a little bit too. He had to rebrand, and his rebranding was important because he did a name change, and he wanted to kind of get out of his contract with Warner Brothers. So he did it kind of and I had and this was actually addressed with someone we both know, one of our coworkers, because they're a huge Prince fan. So it was mainly addressed as he needed to get out of his contract. So the way to do so was, instead of being Prince, he became the artist formerly known as Prince and became the symbol. And by using that symbol, he was able to go to another label, and I want to say, let me make sure I give you the right label name. I'm going to be bad if I do this.
Crazy Park, NPG.
Yes.
Was it one of those?
It was one of those two. It was several of them. Yeah, with this when he joined the NPG. Like, I think it was when he got into the NPG album. That was when it all kind of was like a reinvention of his brand and his career. He did perform at the 2007 Super Bowl halftime show.
He has a lot of achievements. He sold over 100 million records like worldwide, making him one of the best-selling artists of all time.
Yep.
He won 7 Grammy Awards.
Mm-hmm. Sorry. Go ahead. If it didn't record, you don't be mad, but you should be good. Go ahead.
He won 7 Grammy Awards, an American Music Award, a Golden Globe Award, and an Academy Award for the film Purple Rain that you were speaking about before.
Yeah.
He was inducted to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2004, his first year of eligibility, and Rolling Stone ranked Prince at number 27 on its list of 100 greatest artists.
Yep.
They said that he's the most influential artist of the rock and roll era.
Which shows Yeah, and I mean, because you would think he was not, like, you wouldn't have looked at him and thought rock and roll, but oddly enough, he was, like, I mean, that was his biggest thing. He was, okay, so this is where I go away from what notes have and just kind of ramble about him a little bit. He was the true meaning of a womanizer, but he had a personality where he just dressed how he felt.
Yeah, definitely.
And it never really bothered him to be who he was. And in hindsight, that helped him kind of catapult his career. And I mean, he literally, he was involved with quite a few women in his time. He married Maddie Garcia. They had a son, and this was a fun fact for me because I didn't even know this. They were married. They had a son together. He was born in October of '96, and he died a week later due to the Pfeiffer syndrome, which was a rare genetic disorder. He then married Manuela Testoloni, who had been who worked with one of his charitable organizations. That marriage ended in 2006, and then he did work with, or he was in a relationship with Bria Valente. And his religious, they brought up this was, and his religious beliefs started to be kind of addressed when he passed. That he was Jehovah's Witness. He had a different belief when it came to things such as health and when it came to sickness. Like, he really didn't want anybody to know he was sick. That kind of came to light, when he did die. He did die, and he was in Minnesota. He was at his Paisley Park home. His home, they've talked about, is worth millions. I think between him and Neverland Ranch, those is probably 1 and 1A as far as like places that have a lot of sentimental meaning behind them.
Yeah, they found him in his elevator, like unresponsive.
Right. Yep. So, I like I said, I did this story mainly looking at discussing and addressing how much of an importance he had on the musical community. Just like you said, him being a part of rock and roll, it was already like an unexpected scenario. And when I tell you he had quite a few albums, he had a lot of albums that you just wouldn't even like. A lot of people didn't really get into Prince because they didn't understand where he was coming from. Mm-hmm. But after you really sit and look at what he was doing and what he was trying to present as far as his music flow, as I always call it, it was a method to his madness.
Yeah, he's very talented.
Yep. And we'll like I said, we'll stick with the Prince story. We have the next story we're going to be talking about, which his cause of death, they were in between and trying to discuss what caused it. It was a drug overdose. They confirmed it. And let me go ahead and do a disclaimer. I'm not going to say this is going to be explicit content, but this may be more detailed or graphic. So if you don't want to have anyone be hearing about these things, or it's something that, especially if you were a big fan of Prince and it's like, you got kids that like listen to Prince, I would have them not listen to the next couple of minutes. But he was prescribed oxycodone under his friend's name. It was kind of used as an alias days before his death. So they kind of, it was, they're looking at it, it was the obvious statement of a drug overdose, but then it raised the question of wondering if it was an addiction.
Yeah, but he didn't die because of the oxycodone. I think
right.
It was just something that he was maybe addicted to.
Right.
He died because of the fentanyl.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because he had the fentanyl, which they confirmed was given under a different name, because they're still trying. Like they're still trying to work on his case as far as the involvement with his passing. So I just wanted to kind of put that in there and just talk about. Like I said, this story just came to light a couple of days ago. So I was like, I'll go ahead. And like I said, all the links for each of the stories that I give in the podcast, I always make sure I put those in the show notes for you.
And to give like reference, fentanyl is like a synthetic drug that's 50 times more powerful than heroin.
Ooh.
So that tells you like how
strong it was. Yeah, it was something that was leading to taking out. Yeah. Yeah. So I know it's kind of like an odd way, because it's like, okay, we tell a story and it's like, well, why are we giving the bad side of it? But the biggest thing with Prince, and it's kind of a coincidence because I don't have it listed as one of the stories, but I'll go ahead and talk about it. With Charlie Murphy passing this week. Was it this week or last week?
I think it might have been last week.
Last week, okay, yeah. With Charlie Murphy's death, he kind of kept everything going on with him a secret. Mm-hmm. Prince was the same way. Like Prince kind of, he did his performances. He, would go on tour. He stuck to his routine, but his health was ailing, and he didn't want anybody to know it. So that was like one of the biggest reasons as to why I kind of, implemented the Prince story as far as his passing, his background, his history, his impact on the musical industry and things of that sort. So on to our techie talk, and this is a exciting techie talk. It's an odd techie talk for me because I know a lot of you are going to say, wait, why are you talking about the Galaxy S8 and you're an iPhone user? And my co-host is an iPhone user as well. So it like makes it an awkward but not an awkward story. And I tell everyone because I had to kind of school someone at work on getting them to understand this. And I know I've been telling you all I'm being transparent and not telling stories and telling information, but I'm not going to tell where I work, of course. But at my place of employment, or at our place of employment, one of our coworkers, he, was talking to me. I went to say hi to someone, and he was asking me, he's like, so you looking at getting the S8? I was like, well, I'm an iPhone user. I've had an iPhone now, I think, I'm coming up on 2 years, and I mean, my iPhone's been fine. I don't have any problems. It's not like a reason to convert.
Yeah, same here.
Right. So it's like a coincidence because I tell people like I had an Android, and I had to tell him because I was like, he said, like, so he was like, yeah, you got an Android? I was like, yeah, I had an Android, and I had to tell him. Now my Android usage was back with the first Android. I had the G1.
Okay. I don't even think mine had like a name for it.
It was just an Android.
Android, exactly.
So like to kind of give like the techie background, it's like I did the G1, I did the My Touch. I had a LG. I think one of my Android phones I still have in my car now. But my mother, oddly enough, she's holding on to the Note 4. Obviously we know how many notes behind, but even still, it's like, hey, it works. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But the newest phone that came that's in the Samsung family is known as the Galaxy S8, and they have it in the S8, and I believe it's the S8 Plus. I have with the review I'm showing that I have that I'm sharing with everyone is for the S8. There's really not going to be much of a difference between the two other than the size. That's going to be your main factor, and I'm assuming your battery life.
Kind of like the S, like kind of like the iPhone
7 Plus, yeah. It's the exact same thing. I've seen where, and I've been reading these stories and looking at this and picking up on it. The biggest adjustment, because most phones now, the big thing is the fingerprint reader, which I get it, no problem.
Yeah, I use constantly.
Yeah, the S8 didn't really do a good job with their structure because they put the fingerprint reader on the back of the phone, and it's near the camera.
That's weird.
So with them doing that, it showed, and it kind of impacts their end result with their product. So I got like low key static. Sorry.
That's one of those things that you thought of in like the office around people, and it sounded good at first. But
then
it's like
it wasn't put together, thought out properly. They did so the review they broke down, and of course everyone. So to be fair, and I'm like I said, I am an unbiased phone user because a lot of people think, oh, you got an iPhone, so you automatically just an Apple lover. Yeah, I'm an Apple lover, but part of it is because too I have Apple products. Like, I mean, I'm using a Mac. I got mostly Apple devices that I use. I'm still not gonna forget where I came from. I got an Xbox, so it's like I can't contradict the obvious. But I do know, and everyone mentioned it. The Note 7's biggest fail was the infamous battery disaster. As far as phones being set on fire, you couldn't, the battery would blow up. Couldn't really travel anywhere with it. The S8 worked on a lot of those things. They made it a better use for your hands. It's a better process. They haven't had anyone test the infamous Bendgate, which if any of my listeners have or have not heard of it, it's basically let's take a phone. I don't know why I want to say iPhone, but let's take a phone and see how well it is able to handle the strength of a bending. You may have heard of it. I don't know. It's a weird thing.
We talked about that previously on one
of the other podcasts. Yeah. But Dave, it's got a much better feel for it. I always tell people it's kind of almost a golden rule with buying phones. Back in the day, it used to be buy a phone, buy a charger, buy a case. Now, chargers are pretty universal, but I always say make sure you get a case for your phone because true story.
Especially with this one.
Right.
It's very fragile.
Yes, very fragile. And literally, they on the page it shows there was an attempt. Anytime, and it's almost second nature. Like when you have a case on your phone could drop and you wouldn't think about it. It's only when it falls on the face where you're like, okay, I'm a little worried. But with this phone, they have it. They show like an attempt where someone dropped the phone, and when it drops, it's like time stops because it's like that. It is the slowest. Like for whatever reason, and I know I'm giving this as a weird analogy,
pick it up from when it's on its front.
Right? Because you're worried about like I'm gonna pick it up, and if I turn it over, either I got a shattered screen or okay, my screen's all right. And sometimes, I mean, I've had people do this, and I know I'm talking about other phones, but it's just that scenario. Like a friend of mine, his wife dropped her phone. She asked him to pick it up because he didn't want to. She didn't want to see the result. And oddly enough, it was a messed up screen. But that's neither here nor there. On the page, it does show different cases that are recommended for the Galaxy S8. Also, they did break down how it's tough when it comes to touching a finger reader because it is near the camera. So there's a possibility you could, if you may be taking pictures or something you may want to kind of use the finger reader for, your camera will be covered. So I mean that's always, and it's a tough thing to look at, but it's something that people think about. Now also the feature that they're introducing, which it's not really been explained in detail, is what's called an AI assistant known as Bixby. So Techie 101 for those who understand phones. Let me make sure I get this right. On the Xbox, it's Cortana. On Windows PC, it's Cortana. Windows 10. On the iPhone and on most Macs, it's Siri. And anyone who uses Chrome, regardless of what device you have, it's the Google Voice or Google Voice Search or Google Assistant. Bixby is what the Samsung Galaxy, what the S8 is going to be introducing. It has a similar feature. It actually launched on yesterday as well. They haven't really gotten a good feel of using it so far, but from what they understand, it looks as though it has potential to be something good. So we'll see how it goes. If I get more information addressing it, I'll talk about it, but there's not really much that's being said to kind of give like a scratching the surface of what it's capable of, I guess, if that makes sense. Let me see if I have any other piece of information. And so they brought up, because and like I said, on the page it shows review. It's going to be 2 pages to it. One part they talk about it's no dual camera. Dual cameras are not the end of the world, and I'm going to say this because I'm an iPhone 7 Plus user who takes photos that really unless you're that detailed with photography, it's not even a big deal. I say this all the time to people. There are, like, you have devices and apparatuses and things that you can use to make your phone as close to a digital camera as possible without buying a digital camera. Because, you think about it, phones now are practically, smartphones are like turning into little mini computers in so many words. They said that the battery life is good. They're not expecting it to have any issues with overheating. It runs the Android 7.0 Nougat status. There's not an Android O update that you're going to get. You should expect that to come pretty soon. Any of my Android users, y'all know what I'm talking about. The interface is a little cleaner. Let's see. They gave a good credibility to the sound quality. Processor is on point. I tell anybody, and I guess I've known people who have Android devices. Qualcomm Snapdragon is a pretty good processor to use. Let's see. Water resistant. Be mindful of that. That doesn't mean go throw your phone in the water and hope that it'll live. More convenient, and this is another thing, and I'm gonna say this because I'm a 7 Plus user to kind of put it in perspective. The phone, they stated that it has a more convenient one-handed operation, which means I have a 7 Plus. Some days I can do one hand, other days I gotta break out and dual-handed, which is not a bad thing, but for some people, if they're trying to multitask, they want to be able to use one hand and do whatever. Yeah. Let's see. They give you kind of like a specs breakdown.
How much was the last iPhone?
The iPhone 7 outright, I think, was 6 or 7.
Oh, so this one's just a little bit more than that.
Yeah.
Around $750 for
everything out of the box. Yeah.
Yeah.
And keep in mind, like I'll tell you and matter of fact, I'm telling the listeners so people can understand. Price points for phones now, they're important, but they're not important. And the only reason I say they're not important because most companies and most people fail to realize you can lease your phone.
Sure.
So I'm gonna be transparent because I don't care. Some people, I'm not gonna say some people. A couple of years ago, I was that person who, okay, it's a new phone out, I gotta buy it. Let me see what it's all about. Let me go ahead and shell some money, sit some money aside, and buy a phone.
Yeah.
You get older, you learn it's not that serious. The phone can wait. I got other stuff that I can buy other than a phone. So now what I do is, if it's someone who has a phone, I'll go ahead and buy, get it from them and lease it, because 9 times out of 10, you're not gonna keep the phone. I mean, my phone now, other than my one little emotional drop that I had and it got a scar on it, but otherwise, I mean, my phone's held up pretty well. So, I mean, I shouldn't have any issues with if I get a new phone, it's going to impact whether I'm ineligible to upgrade or whatever case may be. So things like that. I mean, price-wise, the price point is important, especially because as the site shows on CNET, and also, by the way, before I continue, if you need any tech information or breakdowns of like any technology that you have or have not bought, CNET is a great resource for that. And I'm speaking on that from pure experience because I've gone to them when I'm not sure of where else to look for different devices. So I just want to share that. And I'm sorry, I did skip one important part. Storage-wise, it is by default 64 gigs. They do have the ability to add the micro SD card, card to it. I know everyone always says that's where iPhone turned me off because you can't upgrade, you can't change the RAM, you can't change the SD card. But on the same token, that's why I think as the phone companies are starting to bring out newer devices, they give you a larger option. Because I mean, I have a 128 gig iPhone. I'd have to do something really, really, really crazy to run out of space on that phone. So this is something to look at or factor in with the phone industry and with the Galaxy S8. So if you have your S8, value it and treat it well. And I'm deaf. Hold on. If y'all can hear that in the podcast, I am so sorry because it caught me off guard. The joys of when you forget to prepare in advance like I do. So I guess I'm giving this. I'm sorry. This is the point where we end our sports conversation. This is a bit of a sports conversation, but it's not a sports conversation, and you'll see why in a moment. Yeah. This is sports related, but it's a lot broken down into the story that there are a lot of questions that are being had in regards to it.
It goes deeper than sports.
Yes. So, Aaron Hernandez was found dead in his jail cell. What they're stating is he hung himself. To give the backstory, and I want to make sure, I know this is where having my co-host is helpful because I can forget things and I can leave pieces of information out to make this relevant. Hernandez was initially serving a life sentence.
Yes.
Due to the 2003 murder of Odin Lloyd. He had recently been found not guilty for a double murder involving 2 other individuals at a nightclub back in April. At a nightclub, and that happened on the 14th. So a couple days afterward, I guess he was in court for something else. Let's see.
Yeah, because he had already been, as you said before, found guilty for the Odin Lloyd murder in 2013.
Yeah. And
then recently he was up for the double murder.
Okay.
Of Sephora Furtado and Daniel Abreu.
Mm-hmm.
That was in 2000. That was on April 14th.
April 14th this year.
I guess they said in 2012 or something of that nature.
Yeah.
And then he was found not guilty that past Monday.
Okay.
But then a couple days ago was when he was found.
Okay.
Days afterwards, he was found.
Okay.
Doing this.
Doing the way he, quote unquote, hung himself, and here's why this is an odd story, because it got attention and the media was in arms, and I skipped over my ass of the week, but I'm kind of gonna Well, I had someone already scheduled as Ass of the Week, but I'm going to give my honorable mention, and it'll kind of tie into this later on. But and Aaron Hernandez was found, dead. It was, such a big deal, and they were trying to figure out. A lot of people are saying it's like they don't think that he really committed suicide. They're trying to put pieces together.
Like what his lawyer was saying. His lawyer was saying he would never commit suicide.
Right. And then what makes it so odd is because the media gets bored, and I'm saying it just like I mean it, they suddenly find that there was, on his forehead, they had the word, it was written in ink, in red ink, John 3:16. I'm not going to do biblical verses here on this podcast. But if you all read the Bible, you'll know what that means. I tell y'all all the time, and I always make this clear, I don't do conflict of interest. I like politics, but I don't get politics too heavy. I don't get politics heavy on the podcast because that's not what my podcast is for. That's what NPR, CNN, Huffington Post, all those other podcasts is. Y'all can have it. Yeah. I'm not doing it. I do sports. And techies and all my other stuff. But they addressed this story, and they're just trying to put more pieces in place as to what happened when he was found dead. So, I'm to be fair, I'm not putting anything to, like, I'm not downplaying anything whatsoever. Condolences to his family, because I know that's like not anything easy to deal with.
I feel like sometimes something that gets lost though is the victims that were also around this.
Affected, yeah.
Yeah, with the family,
the Odom family,
Lloyd, the family of the family around Aaron Hernandez,
right?
So, because he had hurt them, he had affected a lot of people's life in a negative way. But that's his actions and things that he did,
right? And I feel like that's the part that's overshadowed. And then I got a story today, and I don't want to break. I guess I can break it because it's not really. It'll kind of tie into this. There's now speculation and questions and wonders of whether the contract, because he was still on a contract with New England.
Still, this was the last year of that contract,
right? And that contract, I guess, had never been null and voided from everything that was going on. So now the family is trying to see if there's going to be any way of getting any money.
Well, there's going to be settlements, what's it called, too.
Right.
He's still going to be getting sued from the people.
Oh, yeah, the family.
Shot.
Yep.
And there's a few shootings that he was involved in, one in 2012 and two in 2013.
Right.
He, shot somebody who's still alive. And
yeah.
Shot him, in the eye.
Right. So, all of those things will factor in. But, it's, they're trying to put together ways there was a lot going on. He may not, and then you can't really pinpoint and figure out what could have happened or what didn't happen or whatever the case may be, but it kind of went the way it did. So I just I threw that story in because it was something that was addressed and it was something that, did go on. But yeah. Oh, wait. Highlight. I'm sorry. Before I continue, because now since we're in sports, my team won today, Chelsea. Props to Chelsea. Even though it wasn't the Premier League. It's the English FA Cup. So we played Tottenham, won 4-2. So I just wanted to throw that. That was my random 2% story. But yeah, like I said, condolences to the family, all the families who have lost anyone involved in the situation with Hernandez, as well as Hernandez family, and as well as his fiance and kid.
4-year-old child.
4-year-old. Okay. Yeah, because I was getting ready to say wife, and I was like, wait, I don't think they're married. No. I was trying to, because I was like, you know how I do. I'll pick up something and miss it quick. So now we're going to kind of, as we're creeping closer, so this is kind of going to be, I guess, well, you know what, to be fair, it only makes sense. We'll call this the draft block, where we're going to talk about the NBA draft and the NFL draft. We're going to talk about the NBA draft first because two big names, we were kind of waiting to see what they were going to do, whether it was going to happen, whether they were going to go, whether they were going to stay. And one, it was kind of obvious. The other one was kind of in limbo, but we got our answers last week. Kansas forward Josh Jackson decided to declare for the draft, and he does have a agent.
So he's for sure in.
Yes, he signed with BJ. I did not know that. He signed with BJ Armstrong of the Wasserman Media Group. I didn't even know he was an agent. That just educated me on a whole new level. Okay. I don't need an article to talk about this, and I'm going to say why. I'm going to tell you why. Josh Jackson was already projected as a high pick
Top 3, top 5.
when he was in high school.
Furthest, yeah.
Right. So, I mean, him making the decision of going pro was a given. I still see him, and I mean, you like what you just stated kind of hits the nail on the head. He'll likely be a top 5 pick because it's going to be a matter of teams' wants and needs. Also, and go ahead.
No, definitely. Depending on where the draft falls, like
Right.
what teams need, as you said, like
Yeah.
teams already have forwards.
They're
They
not
go
gonna
other
pick
routes, but either way, he's not making it past the top 5, though.
Yeah, I mean, even if he's not 5, it'll be a lottery pick because I mean, at worst come to worst, you can always pick him and trade him.
No, I don't think he's gonna pass 5. I don't think he's gonna pass 5.
Yeah. No, I don't see. I mean, I'm with you. I'm seeing him. If 5 teams pass on Josh Jackson, they're gonna miss a good player.
But as you know, actually, things start to change around draft time.
Oh, yeah.
We're seeing that a lot with the NFL draft. It's also
Yes.
happening with the NBA draft.
Yeah.
Last time I checked, I saw like De'Aaron Fox jump up to like number 3. So
Right.
things are changing all the time.
Yeah, and if any of you all have it's anytime you want to get that little NBA story of figuring out who might project to go where, we always Dimitri and I we always go to NBADraft.net. I mean, it's a pretty good site. It's granted it's not going to be 100% accurate because anything can change the day of the draft, but it's beneficial to see. Now, my question to you, which is an odd thing to think about, is do you feel as though he's going to play in the combine this year?
Probably not. Generally, some of the top players
Won't play
in the draft combine just because it may affect
their draft stock.
Yeah, it's not gonna. It's not. If anything, it's not gonna help their draft stock.
Right.
Away.
Okay.
They're gonna do like team workouts with the teams and things of that nature. But
Yeah.
they're not gonna go to the combine.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I thought about that. But he had a pretty, for the most part, let me see. He was averaging, at Kansas, he averaged 16.7 rebounds a game. They were able to go 31-5. I mean, they had the regular season Big 12. They had a pretty strong run in March Madness. They lost in.
He didn't show up that last game though.
Oh no, he was, but that might have been the sign he was probably gone. But you never know.
He also was in foul trouble, but
Yeah,
he wasn't there.
yeah. But yeah, he definitely, like, as far as like recruiting wise, he was the number 1 recruit from the class, like as far as high school, from going to college. He was the top recruit, and a lot of teams were going for him. So I mean, he made a good choice because at first he was undeclared as to where he was going to go. He eventually chose Kansas, which I'm glad he did because I don't know, other teams it might not have been. You may have gotten the same result, but I don't know. It's kind of like a tough thing with him because I mean, when he got to Kansas, it was already clear he was going to get the green. He was going to get the green light. I mean, you had Frank Mason, you had most of their guards. The center that they had gotten, he was injured most of the year.
Yeah, like I can't say his name. It's like
Adi Bounier or something like that. Yeah, we're not gonna merge. We're gonna do him that bad. But yeah, he's going to the. Josh Jackson's going to the league. Top 5. I think he will. I mean, I want to give him, and like we always talk, like we say on every podcast about rookies, I want to give him his 3 years. Like, I'll give you 3 years. 3 years, I'm gonna let you do whatever it is you do. And I feel like, and this is before we talk about the other potential draftee, a non-potential draftee, I feel like coaches should get that same treatment, but it doesn't happen. Like, for whatever reason, coaches in the NBA, it's like after a year, okay, you had a bad season, bye, see you later.
Sometimes, depending on the coach, depending on the place.
Sacramento.
Oh, yeah, they're just terrible.
Sacramento does it every year. Like, they'll bring somebody in, they'll be there for like a year, and it's like, all right, you did what you could do, so bye, see you later.
It doesn't make sense what they do.
No, that's pretty much. Going to
the next guy.
Yeah, so we have a unique scenario because it was an odd situation that came about because they were trying to figure out whether Miles Bridges was going to come back to Michigan State or if he was going to go to the league. A couple of weeks ago, Gary Harris, who is in the NBA, plays for the Denver Nuggets, talked to him and kind of gave him some insight in saying, kind of pick, make your choice and stand your ground in whatever choice you make. So he kind of solidified his option and he decided to stay. And I personally, we talked about this before the show. I feel like he made a good choice. I mean, no knock against him. He didn't have a good freshman year at Michigan State to me.
He had some injuries.
Yeah.
He's big and he has like an NBA body.
Right.
But overall, like he was going to be a lottery pick or a top 20 pick if he was But next year, though, with a good season, if he has a good season, after next year, he could be a top 10 pick.
True.
Because he has a good build, and Tom Izzo's good at developing players.
Yeah, Izzo always. I mean, you look at a lot of guys. Draymond Green, Mateen Cleaves, Shannon Brown. It's quite a Jason Richardson when he was in the league. He's made a lot of players like into solid supers. I mean, in the NBA, and I'm gonna say this because I feel like it's something that no one wants to admit. Being in the NBA and not making an all-star team does not mean you're not a superstar. No, and I think sometimes teams get hurt because of that. Like a player right now who could be an all-star but never gets the attention, Eric Bledsoe.
Damian Lillard.
And see Damian Lillard is like the snub of all snubs. And Mike Conley, I'll never understand.
Yeah.
Like Mike Conley, but the disadvantage for him is when you're in a point guard position.
You're both in the West.
And you're in the West, and you got to fight against Chris Paul, Steph Curry, Russell Westbrook. I mean, you got just those three alone. You already got to fight to get a spot as a starter or as a bench player.
And shooting guards as well too.
Exactly, Klay Thompson. Yeah, so James Harden. I mean, you got all of those guys that's all trying to fight for guard spots. So I mean, it's everybody can't make it, but the ones who do make it, it kind of turns out. It turns out pretty good in the end. So, Miles Bridges, and I'm sorry, let me retract my comment because I always sound like I'm the unbiased, unfiltered fan. Bridges actually did have a pretty good season looking at stats. He was averaging 17 a game and 17 points and 8 rebounds a game, which he was playing. And to add to the credibility, he was playing out of position because he's not considered as a power forward, but he played power forward at Michigan State.
And the neat part about it is he was like at 26, like draft board.
Right.
By the time he
Gotta love when technology tries to take you down because for whatever reason, the minute it seems like something's not working, you just got to go back and continue. So it may be a hiccup. It may be some information repeated, but it's just going to be what it is because that's just how I do with the podcast. So we were talking briefly about the Michigan State announcement as far as Miles Bridges declaring to go back to Michigan State, and it was mainly addressed that he made a good choice with this draft class. It wasn't he helped his draft stock for next year's draft. Even though he improved, he was slowly rising on the draft projection. It was addressed, and I'm not sure if it recorded in the last part. I'll listen. If it did, then great. You'll just have to hear it again. As you were mentioning, Dimitri, that he initially had, he was 26 on Draft Express, and then he had bumped up to 11, and that was for this year's draft. But he has an even bigger chance because next year he'll get a higher spot.
And then when he said that he was staying back in school, they said that he's ranked number 6 for next year's draft class, so he's already jumped up a little bit, and it'll help him develop more too. So he'll start to know more about basketball in general, probably slim down a little bit.
Yeah, do you feel? All right? So this kind of brings up a good question, and this is why. And since I can kind of throw this in before we talk about the NFL, do you feel as though do one and dones really think like do one and dones work or do they hurt college and the NBA?
That's a good question. I think. I don't know. I don't feel like there's a way around it.
Yeah.
Because it's there. I don't feel like there's a way around it other than adding more school for them.
Right.
So I don't feel like. I don't know. I feel like it's their choice. If they feel that they're ready, then they should go.
Okay.
But I don't know. Some of them, they have the chance to go into the draft combine to see if they're ready to go.
Right.
But some of them don't even get an invite to the combine. So I'm saying if you don't even get an invite to the combine,
you just got to go on blind faith.
You should just go straight back to college.
Yeah.
Because if you don't get a draft, because the combine they invite 60, I believe it's 60 people to the combine.
Yep, and they all in this position.
There's 60 picks in the draft. So if you don't get a spot there, you might as well just go back.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you on that. I'll tell you. I asked the reason I asked that question because. And I thought about it last year when it was a kid that did this. And I'm glad, I think he's going the same route this year. Dwayne Bacon from Florida State. Now, who are you gonna mention?
I was going to mention Terrence Ferguson.
Yes.
The guy who went to China.
Yes.
And stayed out a year. I said he might as well go back to the role where you could just go straight out of high school, I guess.
Yeah.
Just because not many people before when there was that rule, like
right.
Not many people were going straight from high school to the NBA.
It wasn't as many, but I think they were.
You think they was on the trend to be more?
I feel like they saw it. They saw what was coming, and they wanted to prepare for it. Because if you look at it, look at it like this, and this is kind of a side again. Like I mean, this is draft talk, so whatever. Think of the first few years when the one and done rule got introduced. Michael Beasley, Greg Oden, Kevin Durant, O.J. Mayo, Derrick Rose, John Wall, like DeMarcus Cousins. Out of that list of names, you had quite a few who needed college to get that solidified position. Because, I mean, I don't know if I can. I mean, I guess I can say it and look at it as the truth. I mean, Kyrie Irving coming out of high school, getting that 1 year at Duke, even though he was hurt.
He played 8 games.
He was hurt, but I mean, it didn't affect his stock. That's what's odd about it. I mean, he still ended up being a number one pick. You have to, like, sometimes that year can help certain players, especially with certain drafts. And I guess I'm looking at it and thinking of it like that now because players, when they do that 1 year, and you look at what you're looking at on the draft board is who could be picked versus where you could land in the spot.
What do you think about them doing like the baseball rule?
Like
with baseball, it's like you have to. So it's either you go straight out of high school, or you have to go to college and you have to go for like multiple years.
I would
for
rather.
them, I believe it's 3 years.
Yeah.
I say like maybe make it 2 years or something like that.
Dude, I would want them. If you give them that option, I think that would be better. Because I feel like getting 1 year, like you pretty much, in my opinion, I feel like when they do the 1 year in in college, you really don't see much of that player.
Yeah.
Because I mean, they made like the guy, for instance, the center from Arizona. He's going pro, and I really didn't see much of him at all.
I watched some of his games because his games were on late.
Yeah.
He plays for the Pac-12.
Right.
Pac-12 games on a little late.
Yeah.
But he kind of fell off towards the last part,
right.
The later part of the season. So.
And that's why but then the sad part is somebody's gonna pick him up because he's a big man. Because you know who he reminded me of, and I feel bad for to say it because I think he's still like trailblazing in the NBA now. Chase Budinger, who went to Arizona, who played
different players.
I mean, yeah,
there was like a small forward,
right? But it was like Chase Budinger was hype at, like, for some teams it was like a pickup of, okay, we could get him because he could kind of shoot, he could kind of play the floor. Yeah, so I mean,
but people more compare it's Markkanen, Lauri Markkanen, the guy from Arizona.
Yeah,
compare him more to Dirk Nowitzki.
And that's tall.
He's like European. He's from Finland.
Right, that's a tall order.
7 foot. He can shoot the three.
Yeah,
but no, it's definitely a stretch.
Right. So those, we're breaking that information down. We're looking at the draft. We'll see. Even though Miles Bridges won't be in the draft, we'll see where the other players land. As we get closer to the draft, and actually we're a couple of weeks away, where our favorite part is coming, where they do the draft lottery. And I'm ready for that because I want to see who gets what pick. Yeah, because I want to see if you're gonna come on the podcast upset or if you actually happy that y'all got a lottery pick. Because I already know.
Calling out that week.
And that's a fair warning. I've taken note to it. So I did, like I said, I was gonna give the NFL draft a little bit of attention. I had that. We went into NFL draft spiel, but what we'll do instead, and what I'm looking at is there was a big piece of news that was shared, and that was that the NFL team schedules were released. Yeah. So they broke down the preseason schedules. A lot of teams had their schedules presented. They had some games were leaked. I found it coincidental. And you know what? I'm gonna say this because I didn't mention this when we talked about it the first time, so I'll say it now. Normally, when they do the Super Bowl rematch, it's typically week 1.
That's how it should.
I was wondering why they changed it this year.
When is the matchup?
I think it's week 7.
Week 7. You
all play New England week 7.
Oh yeah, that's correct.
You forgot that quick that y'all was in the Super Bowl? Is that amnesia? Okay, I'm sorry. Good. See, I'm glad we re-recorded this time.
Yeah, you can copy on that one. I was trying to think who else was in the Super Bowl with the Patriots.
Who played against New England?
I've tried to forget that we were there and that we.
A tale of two halves. I felt that. Oh my gosh,
I tried to forget about that.
That was a good moment. I feel bad for whoever in this library. I don't know if I told y'all that. I may have a couple of weeks ago, but we always do our podcast typically at the library, and I know it was just a unique moment because he was like, "Wait, what?" And I know I'm laughing. I'm probably like, but the area we're in is pretty good. I like it for sound, so it works out just fine.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we looked at projected schedules, and I believe
week 7, yeah.
Yeah, week 7, and it's actually pretty decent. Y'all bye week is week 5.
I wish it was week 6.
Week 6, yeah, right.
Close enough.
Get a little prep. Yeah, our bye week is pretty late in the season on week 11 for Carolina. So I stated that we were gonna go 8-8. I'm not giving a strong year to Carolina this year. I don't know why. It's just. I mean, after
it's
3,
it's usually those years that when a team
the blindside
moment,
moment,
in the NFC South.
Yep. So with us with the NFC South, we've always seen it, and I said it earlier. Before Carolina had won the 3 straight, it fluctuate. One year it was Tampa Bay. Yeah. I really like repeating that division is not simple. And then team at the bottom can show up being at the top. Vice versa.
That's how it's always been.
Yeah.
Just flip-flopping around.
New Orleans could have their wake up year. You never know. It fluctuates. And all right. So Atlanta, you said 11. You said 11-5.
11-5.
11-5. Okay.
12-4 if they're having a great year.
Yeah.
I say 11-5.
Okay.
I think the NFC South could have had 2 teams in the playoffs. I see like the Falcons and the Buccaneers. I see the Buccaneers coming out and having a good year this year.
Yeah. And I did ask you, and like I said, didn't record, so I ask again. I forgot the first part of the question because I'm old. No, I'm just kidding. It'll come back at some point. But the main question: do you feel as though New England would do the obvious and go 6-0 in their division?
Yes. Oh yeah, we talked about that. Yeah. I think the Dolphins are trending towards the right path, but I don't think they're there yet.
Okay.
And the other question that you had asked me, I remembered actually, was how do I think about week 10?
Week 10, yeah. The Dallas, the Dallas and Atlanta matchup.
And I think we're gonna get the win, especially since it's at home.
Okay.
It's gonna be after a 3-game road trip too.
All right, so that'll help out.
First game home.
Yeah.
I think, I said before, I think we'll either win that game or win the Seattle game because those are 2 back-to-back weeks.
Yeah, those are big games.
It's gonna be actually 4. It's like 4 tough weeks right there.
Yeah.
Because it's gonna be Panthers rivalry, Cowboys, Seahawks in Seattle,
right?
Then Tampa Bay, another rivalry, then Minnesota, and then 4 conference divisional matchups. So it's gonna be the second half of our schedule is very
strong. Yeah. Y'all got because they gave. I mean, sometimes and typically I've seen that anytime a team that does either Super Bowl bound in the Super Bowl or in the playoffs. The following year, they get hit with a pretty strong schedule. I mean, some games you get a given.
Actually, the Cowboys have the toughest schedule.
Really?
How do you feel that they'll finish off? Do you have their?
Let me get them pulled up. I can get the joy of technology. I swear. One time it take us forever to pull stuff up. Now it's like, let me just go to this page real quick. I'm gonna check their schedule. I mean, all right. So my first thing I'm gonna go ahead and I'll get out of the way quick is division wise. I could see them going 4-2.
You can see them going 4-2. Who do you see them losing to? Because they lost twice to the Giants last year.
I'm keeping it. Yeah, I got to keep in mind. Yeah, see, they got the Giants week 1, so I'm taking that. That's the first one right there for me.
You think they're gonna lose the first game to the Giants?
Yep. I'm just calling it, and I know that's like a strong yep and an aggressive quick call, but I can see that. I can truly see that. I forgot. They would be the only team that have an actual doggone Dallas Cowboys page. Everybody else you gotta go through the simple way. I'm trying to see if I can get that schedule up real quick.
Yeah, so they got the Giants week 1.
Yep.
The Broncos, the Cardinals. Both of those are on the road.
Yeah. All right.
Rams, Packers. They got
All right, so looking at their schedule, okay, the Broncos is always a question mark, even with them hardly having anybody. The Packers are going to be a big, huge one. Kansas City, you never know. Kansas City is going to be a wild card. The Chargers at that point of the season, keep an eye on them because by usually November, like late November, December, you get a whole different game. That game against Oklahoma, not Oklahoma. Oakland's going to be big.
Those last 5, they have a hard time.
Yeah, that last five is already because you literally have all three of your division team. All right. Matter of fact, no, we're gonna take it a step further. The last 7, only because they're playing the Eagles within 7 weeks of each other. Because they play the Eagles week 11 and week 17.
And the 2 games before that are pretty tough too with the Falcons and the Chiefs. So
right.
They have a tough schedule.
I mean, tough schedule. Like so,
have a couple gimmies. Like the 49ers is a gimme.
Yeah.
The Rams are like they're gonna take those 2.
So
and the Chargers most likely, I say they'll take those. Those are the 3 easiest wins that they have in the schedule.
Yeah, so I'll say 10-6, and I'll say 4-2, maybe 3-3 for division.
Which is still good with the schedule that they have.
Exactly.
They have a tough one.
Yep. So speaking of schedules, and since we've got, I think most teams have 1 game left before everyone's at their 3-game mark.
Yep.
We have the NBA playoffs, which we're a weekend and let's see, give or take, over 20 games in, and we've had quite a bit of entertaining results for a couple of games, to say the least. Golden State, Damian Lillard's right on projection of winning that in 6 so far, since they're 2-0 to Golden State. I really feel like they're gonna get swept. I hate to say it, but I don't know. It depends on how Game 3 goes. Game 3 is gonna be the question mark game.
I think they're gonna get swept too, to be honest. But
yeah, Boston.
I want to give them one, but
I want to listen to the podcast and think of what I said with the Boston Chicago series, because I feel like I had Chicago winning.
Chicago.
But if I didn't, even still, like them winning 2 games in Boston.
But it'll show a lot in the next game. Game 4, if Boston comes out and they win Game 4.
Then it's back to 0.
If they lose Game 4, they're done.
Right.
They're done in 6.
Yeah. Milwaukee is a shocker. That one is a real shocker for me.
I thought, because I knew Milwaukee was on the come up because they have a young team, they're a very talented team, especially with Antetokounmpo.
Right.
But they're missing one of their top players with Jabari Parker.
Jabari Parker, yeah.
And because he's out with his torn ACL, I think they're going to do great next year. This year, they're already doing very well.
Yeah, they're actually winning their game. Toronto's beating them by 2 in the first quarter, 15-13.
I still
excuse me. Cleveland.
Win today, though.
You got Cleveland sweeping?
Cleveland, yeah, they're sweeping them.
But
they're definitely sweeping. After the last game, when you saw that last game, they're up 20.
They had a big lead. Yeah, I was when I got home, when I left work, I looked and I was looking at it like, okay, Indiana should have this. This shouldn't be a problem. And it was LeBron. I mean, the switch flip.
Because Kyrie and Kevin Love were out the last 14 minutes and 30 seconds of that game.
Right.
They still came back and they still beat them. I'm like, you got to. I don't know, man. They're very dysfunctional. They got to switch things up with that team. I see Paul George leaving after trading him.
They're going. I don't blame him
because he's going to end up leaving next year in free agency, especially after he's doing all this and
no production. I mean, and then it's even worse because you're trying to figure out will the real Lance Stevenson showed up, because you're still getting the. It's like he's being playful when it's like, look, I need you to show up and show out. And I think what's really important with Paul George, and I think he's finally starting to get it, and I think that's why if he leaves, it's not going to be a surprise. He's gotten that killer instinct, because that's what makes or breaks a lot of players in the NBA. Like, LeBron got his killer instinct kick when they played against Detroit a couple of years ago when he came back and forth.
He's still working on it.
Yeah,
because he didn't have it when they played against the Dallas Mavericks.
Oh no, in the Dallas game he disappeared. You talking about when they went to the championship? Yeah, that he was a definite no show.
Yeah, I feel like somebody who's not being mentioned a lot in that series for the Pacers is Monte Ellis, who used to be a 20-point per game.
Right.
He hasn't showed up at all.
And did his minutes.
He's a starter still. No,
he's a starter. He's still gonna because I was wondering, because I'm like you got T Ellis, Paul George,
Thaddeus Young,
Thaddeus,
and Miles Turner.
Yeah, because Miles Turner's starting to come into his own now. Washington, they're playing today, I believe. Yeah, they play. I'm sorry, Game 4. Yeah, Game 3 is today. Okay, yeah. So they play today later on.
They're gonna win that series. John
They-
Wall's coming out and showing up.
Yeah, John Wall got to bring it. I mean, he has no choice. Side note, because I don't know if you saw it, and I'm telling everyone now, if you are a big basketball fan and you want a good laugh, Bleacher Report does this rendition of Game of Thrones. They call it Game of Zones. I'm gonna make sure I remember to put the link in the description for it. It is one of the funniest things to see, and the best thing I can tell you without telling you, they did the first episode of it on Thursday. If you understood the whole scenario with Kevin Durant trying to get picked up as a free agent, you'll love the first episode. That's all I'm gonna tell you. I don't want to tell too much of it because it literally gave me life without even trying. It was just funny to me.
Speaking about Kevin Durant, how do you feel about the Warriors? Should they rest Kevin Durant?
Yes.
Or how do you feel about that?
Sit him. You don't like right now. To be fair, if he misses part of this series and he misses part of the next series, I'm okay with that. And the only reason I say that is because him coming in, like you look at it as
he still has to get. I think he has to get a couple games before
yeah,
the finals.
yeah. Give me true. I will now that you're right. I'll say
like 2 games.
And because I mean they play. If we were to kind of project it and say the Clippers beat the Jazz,
Blake Griffin's out now too.
Oh,
He's out for the
that's
rest
huge.
Of the playoffs.
Wow, that's
But
gonna be huge.
Rudy Gobert's out for the Jazz. So
Yeah,
it's
I mean, because DeAndre Jordan ain't gonna score. I mean, he gonna score, but that's mostly on putbacks and
lobs.
not free throws. Yeah.
Yep.
Houston is ahead 2-1. They brought up the big news of Westbrook being the first player since Big O to score 30 to score triple doubles, scoring 30 points in 2 consecutive playoff games. It's a big stat.
That is a big stat, and he also joined the only 7 people have ever had a 40-point triple double game in the playoffs.
Wow,
him and LeBron actually joined it the same night.
That's crazy.
Yep.
Yeah, LeBron gets quiet. I think LeBron doing his triple doubles, I ain't gonna say it's quiet, but it's like it doesn't have to get half of the attention that it gets because it's like it's LeBron. I think everybody has placed this expectation of LeBron is gonna go out and do work, but the tough part is flipping the switch. Flipping the switch for first round games, no problem. When you get to the finals or you get to conference finals, it's gonna be a whole different scenario.
And plus, it's not just him now, because I feel like some people on the Cavaliers take him for granted.
Yeah,
they do less now because LeBron could do so much more. It's like you still need to do what you can do on the court.
exactly, and I think that's what hurts. That's what I don't understand about Cleveland because, and I'll say it now because they don't do it as much, but you still see it from time to time. I have a big thing about a stand around offense. So it's like when
That's
you're
what OKC has done for the last 6 years. They have a stand around offense.
Yeah, because if you're sitting there and you waiting for Durant and Westbrook to do everything, that's what I mean, in so many words, that's what caused the breakup between them.
Yeah.
But
it makes things harder on the person who's just dribbling the ball out.
Yeah, because
create everything.
Because in Golden, like for instance, with Golden State's case now, you have.
Last couple of years, they pass the ball around.
They got 4. I mean, you got scores at every angle, and you have players that all do their role. Like everybody got on Zaja.
Pass the ball.
Yeah, because everybody got on Zaja Pachulia because it was like he was only there. He wasn't really a offensive threat. It's like they didn't need him to be.
But he could also pass the ball.
Yeah.
You know.
Spurs, they had a unique scenario. Two factors with the Spurs-Memphis series. I think it was Game 2. Game 2, their coach had a huge blow up. He got a $30,000 fine for it.
I loved it.
Oh yeah, no, it was. I mean, it's legit facts. I mean, you're coaching against one of the best coaches in the NBA, and he said, "I'm not going to get calls because y'all are going to give more attention to."
Yeah, it was funny what he had said. He said how many shots that his team had shot in the paint.
Yep.
How many shots the Spurs had shot in the paint.
Yep.
How many fouls?
How many free throws?
His team had got. How many free throws the other team had got, and how Kawhi Leonard shot more free throws than the Grizzlies' entire team.
That tells a lot.
He's like, I know they have pedigree. I know Pop's been a coach for so long, but you're not gonna rook us. You're not gonna rook us. Take that for data. And he down and left.
I was like that. Yeah, that was a good little rant. And then it was a coincidence because Game 3, Memphis came out, played good ball. I think in the start of the second half, Pop benched all his stars.
Yeah.
He said Parker, Green, Kawhi, and I can't think of the other guy's name. It wasn't Aldridge, but he set them and then Yep, he sat him and then brought in some of the bench players. I have to remember because I haven't seen him that much. I always forget that David Lee is on their team.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? So to have him coming in, I was like, oh, David Lee, hey, and he actually having a pretty good year this year. So we'll come, as we always do. By the time we come back to this playoff scenario next week,
by the end of the first round,
it'll some first round games will be some teams should have some series knocked out, but we'll see what happens. Kind of how that all goes. So I have one more sports story, and then our infamous dreaded ass of the week is no exception. I'm going to also address the honorable mention because it's a tragic situation, but we'll get into that in a moment. The legendary Big Aristotle, the Diesel, Shaquille O'Neal's son, Sharif O'Neal, made his commitment to the University of Arizona. How do you feel about it?
What the funny part is, because we both already proclaimed that we are Kentucky fans.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Previously, like a year ago or so, he was saying how he wanted to go to Kentucky.
Yep.
His dad, Shaq, wanted him to go to Kentucky as well.
Yeah.
Too. But he wasn't as, I guess Kentucky wasn't as highly recruiting him as other places.
Right.
And Arizona was very much recruiting him.
Yeah.
He looks very, I don't know, he looks like he has some promise.
Mm-hmm.
He's a 5-star in his class.
Yes.
His next year's class, not this year. He's not going to play this year. It's the following year.
Right.
I think they'll do good because, Arizona always has players going there. So
yeah, I feel like it'll work. Yeah.
He seems more, he's definitely smaller than his father.
Yeah,
he's like 6'8" compared to his dad, who's like 7'1".
And skinny. He's not that big. But I mean, when it comes to the game, you gain weight kind of comes and goes. It's like a hit or miss with the process.
If you see Shaq when he was like a rookie compared to when he was.
Oh yes, I remember when he was like, I think in LSU he was like he had a very thin frame. Like you couldn't tell.
Continued to grow, and same thing with Dwight Howard as well too.
Yeah.
So you can grow.
Yeah. So
he's
with
Anthony Davis also.
True.
Davis has gotten bigger.
Yeah, Anthony Davis, because I think thinking back with Davis, Anthony Davis was projected like he was looked at as a guard when he first had talked about he's playing basketball.
Yeah.
Then by his junior and senior year, he unexpectedly grew, and it was like okay, he's a center, like he's a big man. And now since he's been in with New Orleans, and I feel like a lot of people give him grief for being as loyal to New Orleans, but on the same token, it's worked out for him because he's making the money, and pretty much but even with the rebranding New Orleans has done, it still worked out for him to stay with that team. I know at one point it was a big hoopla because they were going to be the New Orleans Hornets. Then they removed the Hornets and they became the Pelicans. And the Pelicans, and I'll talk about this story, and I know this has nothing to do with anything we have on our podcast, but one of the Pelicans' biggest fails that they made, and I don't know if I think they broke away from it since, was their mascot. Their mascot was not the best choice for a mascot. They kind of had to refine it because it was a little too much with the face and all. But they've since learned from it. Random segue, I know. But turning back to Sharif, he's from he's in Cali, so him not being far from in Arizona is not a big deal. He had schools that he was looking at: UCLA, USC, Kentucky were involved. LSU was not really in the mix, which made sense because it's kind of like separate lands. He was number 19 in the class. He's currently ranked number 19. Hopefully his ranking will improve. It'll be promising to see how it goes if he goes to if he makes the All-American team next year. And I'm sorry, before I continue because I really feel bad, I didn't give the McDonald's All-American game a lot of attention, and I think the reason why is because I knew a lot of the players who were playing, but in between not watching it and not really getting statistical breakdowns of who was involved.
Yeah.
Because, from what I could tell, it seemed like it was the Michael Porter show. So
yeah, Michael Porter, Colin Sexton showed up
Colin
as well,
Sexton,
too.
yeah.
Colin Sexton showed up. He had a good game as well, too.
Yeah.
Jared Vanderbilt actually had a good game when they played the Nike Hoops.
Yes. I've heard about that. I've heard the Nike, between the Nike Hoops, because it's usually three of them they do. They do the McDonald's All-American, the Nike Hoops, and then it's a Jordan Brand one, right?
Classic,
yeah. Jordan Brand Classic, I think, was the one that because, before you really
he showed
didn't.
up there as well, too, yeah.
Right,
but
yeah.
He got hurt at the last minute before Jared Vanderbilt. He had like an ankle injury or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's nothing serious. So a couple people did show up. So did Quay Green,
yes,
Green, and Mitchell Robinson. That's somebody who I think he's gonna be a stud.
Okay.
He's going to Western Kentucky. Kind of reminds me of DeAndre Jordan.
Yeah.
But I don't know, maybe a little bit better at that stage.
Okay.
Because he's very athletic.
Yeah.
He's a lefty too. He wants to dunk everything, block everything.
Yeah.
He kind of, when he speaks, it kind of reminds me kind of like a Warner boy. He's very smart. He's very athletic.
But he keeps it like a list. The battle. Yeah. I got you.
That makes me like him even more though.
No, I mean, as long as you raw talent, you can come out there and play. That's all that matters. Yeah. And speaking of Vanderbilt, before we continue, because with him going to Kentucky, I remember last year when he was playing, because he played the game against who was it? Billy Preston, Trevon Duvall. What's the guy we were just talking about from that went? He's over and playing overseas now. Terrence Ferguson. All of them were on the same team.
Okay.
And they played against Vanderbilt when he was on that, like the team that Vanderbilt was on. And I mean, Vanderbilt held his own, but it was like, I mean, you was playing against guys that all were like on the same team playing, and now it's like coincidence because last season or this past high school year, all of those guys pretty much split. You know, Ferguson obviously went overseas. Billy Preston went to Oak Hill. Trevon Duvall went to IMG Academy, you know, down in Florida. So it just kind of was like a different scenario, you know. But to have had the opportunity to play against him was just a coincidence. So big props to him. Hopefully he'll have a good year. I'm hoping and praying, and I'm probably saying this in a bad way, I hope he's not a one and done because
a lot of players on the team aren't going to be a one and done, I feel, but I think he might be. He kind of reminds me of like Lamar Odom type. Not as big. Yeah. But he's like 6'9" actually. He's like 6'8", 6'9". So he can grow like in bulk.
Yeah.
But he kind of reminds me of him.
All right, and before I forget, because it was a random sighting, Lamar Odom was cited at I guess it's like the little league that like Lamar, that LaMelo Ball is in with his dad. It was a similar type of league. Yeah, it was an AU tournament, and it was it was like a 15-year-old. It was a 15-year-old league, and literally all I can remember because I was looking at the video on YouTube. Like they showed Lamar Odom, he had on the Russell Westbrook jersey. He looked like he could get out and still probably could play, but he was just kind of hanging out, just chilling. But the teams that were playing, it was like watching the Space Jam against. It was like watching No Names against Space Jam type setup. It was just lopsided. Or like the Monstars. It was like the Monstars staying as the Monstars playing against the Space Jam team without Michael Jordan. Because literally, like, the team would take the ball out, they would give it to somebody. Before they could dribble, the team would steal it from them and just set up plays and just threw alley-oops back and forth. But it was just like, it was a tough thing to watch. So this is our favorite point of the podcast. And luckily, we're still recording, and we have recorded much to our upbringing of still keeping it under an hour and 20 minutes. We're at an hour and 11, so it's not too bad. But before we go into our main option, and I believe the service was today for the victim involved in the Cleveland shooting, not the actual person who killed the person, but the person who was shot. Yeah, the victim. They had their service, which I swear Facebook can sometimes go too far. We didn't learn anything from Facebook Live already. They did a Facebook Live viewing from the service for that for him today, so they had that online. Okay. But the person who was the shooter was involved in he was in Cleveland. He was on a mission to try and kill individuals, and it was a purpose involved related to Jews, I believe. Long story short, they put out a presentation saying if anyone found it, I think it was like a $500,000 reward or five. It was like it was a reward if you found him. So he went to a McDonald's, and this is okay. So this is why he gets ass of the week, and I'm just gonna say it because it's just stupid. But he's the honorable mention for ass of the week. Yep. He went to a McDonald's to put an order in. And the person who was at the window said,
like chicken nuggets
and fries. So they was like, the manager comes to the window and says, we wait, it's going to be a while for us to get the fries prepared or whatever.
They gave the chicken
right, they gave him the nuggets and they just stalled with giving the fries. So eventually he probably put two and two together because everyone in the store realized it was him. Mm-hmm. And he eventually drove off. And
calmly,
he calmed off. He drove off like it was nothing. And then I guess authorities, because they They were onto it because someone had called that was in the McDonald's to state, "Hey, he's at this McDonald's," and once they kind of surrounded him, he committed suicide. He went ahead and shot himself, and it was like, this was just. I mean, I'm glad it. I mean, I don't like the way that it ended, but it was like at least it was like an ending because I mean, one of two things would have happened: either he would have committed suicide, which he did, or the police would have,
or police would. You were gonna say police would have ended it.
Yeah. So, having that situation end the way it did, it was just tough. But it is what it is. But he gets ass of the week because I mean, McDonald's really you was like, I'm kind of hungry. Let me go. Let's make a stop real quick. But
McDonald's saved the day.
Yeah, hey, and it's a coincidence because now the question is surrounding as to whether they should get the reward. Because
the employees should.
Huh?
The employees should.
Yeah, the employee they're trying to figure out whether they should get the reward. I'm like, I don't see why not, but because they're making it like you have to, if you give any leads or any tips to it, they gave a lead.
They're the reason why they caught him. Yeah,
right.
So they definitely deserve to not split it. However many people are there.
So we'll see how if that actually happens or how that pans out. But I was thinking about that when that all occurred. But our ass of the week this week is none other than one of my favorite politicians, and I know I'm contradicting myself because I did say that we weren't doing politics, but this one. I caught it. This is the accountability factor because I factored in like I don't do politics and talk about it, but this one is not for his political views. This is for his intimate views and ignorance thereof, or lack involving ignorance. He was involved in quite a few sexual harassment charges, to say the least. But Bill O'Reilly. The story that I shared with everyone that you'll see in the show notes stated that Bill O'Reilly was forced out of Fox News. So to give the backstory, because it may be listed in this, but if it's not, I'll kind of give you like a true little breakdown. A couple of weeks ago, they kind of made an announcement that he was taking a leave. He was going to be on vacation, air quotes vacation. And he was on vacation, and it was kind of like they had other people sitting in for the Bill O'Reilly show to kind of cover that space. Well, in the process, what affected Fox News the most is, like anybody, money. They lost sponsorships. They lost about 50.
Yeah, at first, because I was actually watching like another show like that night when it first happened, and it was like one advertiser who had left. It was Mercedes Benz who left first.
That's big.
By the next night, there was already 20 that were gone.
Yep.
A couple nights later, there was 40 advertisers that had left that show.
Yeah. And so I mean, to lose, and like you said, it's up to they said since then more than 50 advertisers had abandoned the show, and I mean anytime you. Number one, and this is the thing that people don't understand when it comes to media. If it's anything involving women, you can forget it. You're gonna lose everything from that point on. So having women's rights groups, calling in and requesting and thinking he should be fired, and Fox can't rebrand. Like Fox isn't
used to this. Their owner, previous CEO, Roger Ailes, had the same thing. He was
doing the same thing.
He was forced out because of doing like the same thing.
Right. And that means that Bill O'Reilly didn't learn. So obviously it went the way it did. But the main hit of it was a while back. Fox had to do a couple settlements for 5 women who were involved with complaining about sexual harassment, and it totaled to about $13 million. They did a buyout, if I'm not mistaken, involving Bill O'Reilly. And I mean, you think he's 67, so it's like.
But I saw something the other day though, how there are a couple other networks that
want to pick him up,
or do the same type of the same type of field that want to pick him up.
Yeah, I can see that coming up.
He had so many viewers for his, they as I say, like the more talented you are, the more you can get away with different things.
Oh yeah, but because this will probably be the most backwards thing I say. I know CNN is definitely out of the mix because that wouldn't even make sense.
It was more, you could say, conservative networks that were trying to bring him on board.
Yeah, because like as a 2%, it wouldn't surprise me if I saw him somewhere like C-SPAN.
What I saw that was very funny was that, not to get too political or anything.
No, you good.
Something I found funny, no matter who it was, that President Donald Trump actually had said that he felt that Bill O'Reilly did nothing wrong.
Yeah,
everything was okay, and I found that comical.
That was
due to the fact that there was a
unique coincidence
about President Donald Trump further back.
Yeah,
when he made those comments about grabbing women's genitals.
Yeah, like it was like he forgot.
It's like, I don't know if Bill O'Reilly wants him as his co-signer on this one.
Yep. I mean, it was not thought out. And yeah, that's okay. So this is the other story, and I didn't have it, and I forgot to share it. But this is me being a bad podcaster. He was given a $25 million payout.
Oh wow.
When he left.
That's nice.
Fox News host will get $25 million under his contract, and we're gonna pray that this little music don't come up, which it did anyway.
That's a big payout.
It is. I mean, but that's them knowing what they were dealing with. They were like, let's just go ahead, cut our ties, send him on his way. He was given a $25 million settlement. O'Reilly's most recent contract provides that he can receive a maximum of 1 year's salary upon departure, and his contract was said to be worth $25 a year. And let's see, and they just kind of give like history of what was going on and like we talked about. But yeah, this is on Huffington Post. I'll be sure to have that in the notes as well. But yeah, it was this was my ass of the week, and I think, like I said, I know me being my non-political mindset, and I've had people say this, and I'm going to say this because I really want to be truthful and honest in what I'm about to say. I know I literally I've talked to someone before saying like, yeah, I want to do, I do my podcast and I talk about different things. And I was like, well, here's who I would have for Ass of the Week. And each week I'll do somebody that's like an Ass of the Week. And somebody was like, well, yeah, if you do Ass of the Week, you can just do Donald Trump each week. And I'm like, yeah, but then I would run out of information, and then I don't want it to just seem like I'm bad mouthing him as a whole, even though I'm not a big fan.
They would make come off as a
lopsided story. So that's why we get different ones. But Bill O'Reilly being a coincidence with it was just odd because, like I said, it had nothing to do with his stories, because his stories and his content is who he is. I mean, that's his stories and his content is why he gets ratings. So I don't knock him on that regard. But when your personal life impedes and impacts not just your show, but your sponsorships,
the way you're treating like women as second class citizens, kind of like,
right?
They need to do things for you, and if they're not going to do what you want them to do,
then you're
going to
go badmouth
them and blacklist them.
Yeah,
across all different networks. So it's definitely terrible what he did.
Yeah, so I mean, hopefully, he'll get his career back on track. I mean, it's Bill O'Reilly. The name itself will bring the attention, so that's not even an issue. But
that network better be willing to
they better be willing to take the sacrifices that come with having them on your show, basically.
Definitely.
So yeah, this was like I said, this is one of our. I mean, it was a different podcast, but it wasn't. It was we still did our sports hit. Likely, what I'm thinking next week is going to be kind of like I said, updating with the NBA. We'll have
NFL draft.
Yeah, we'll have some draft picks, kind of see what happens with a few names and faces. Finding some random stories that might come up, because there's always something unique that comes up that least expects, that I'm always caught off guard by when it comes to reading about it. So those are all of our stories for today. We appreciate y'all tuning in. I enjoy doing this. I love it. It's literally like a way of getting out there to the community, letting y'all know what's going on in the sports world. I am possibly going to think of doing some local stories. Just got to get some local stories to discuss. We'll see how that goes.
One topic we'll talk about next week.
Yeah, we do. We actually, you know what we do, because it is an individual that we were gonna bring into this one, but we'll kind of save it for since it'll kind of tie into the NFL story. So thanks for that reminder.
Appreciate you staying with us throughout this.
Yeah, but if you got any closeouts before we go?
No, just appreciate if you stay with us throughout this, and until next time.
Yeah, man. Well, you know how we do. Past podcast will cap it off. Another week, another show. Y'all take it easy.
All right, then.
Peace. We've done it once again. We've finished yet another episode. Appreciate everyone for tuning in. If you're not following on Twitter or on Facebook, please look up Pass Podcast. That's PASS Podcast, one word. I am accepting inquiries for any topics or concerns at passpodcastbt@gmail.com. And just continue to support. I appreciate all the support and everyone listening and tuning in. Until next time, y'all take it easy.